I have faith that the Constitution will be saved as prophesied by Joseph Smith. But it will not be saved in Washington.
One of our brethren some years ago spoke of the payment of tithing as fire insurance. Nonetheless, the word of the Lord is clear that those who do not keep the commandments and observe the laws of God shall be burned at the time of his coming. For that shall be a day of judgment, a day of sifting, a day of separating the good from the evil. I would venture a personal opinion that no event has occurred in all the history of the earth as dreadful as will be the day of the second coming, as fraught with the destructive forces of nature, as consequential for the nations of the earth, as terrible for the wicked, and as wonderful for the righteous.
I testify that America is a choice land. God raised up the founding fathers of the United States of America and established the inspired Constitution. I can't turn the page over. This was the required prologue for the restoration of the gospel. America will be a blessed land unto the righteous forever, and is the base from which God will continue to direct the worldwide Latter-day Saint operation of his kingdom. I testify that there has been, and there is now, and there will be legal successors to the prophet Joseph Smith, who hold the keys of the kingdom of God on the earth, even the President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He received revelation from God to direct his kingdom. Associated with him are others who are prophets, seers, and revelators, even those who make up the presiding quorums of the church, namely the First Presidency and quorum of the 12 apostles. I testify that wickedness is rapidly expanding in every phase of our society. It is more highly organized, more cleverly disguised, and more powerfully presented. Secret combinations, lusting for power, gain, and glory are flourishing. A secret combination that seeks to overthrow the freedom of all lands, nations, and countries is increasing in the evil influence and control over America and the entire world. I testify that the Church and Kingdom of God is increasing in strength. Its numbers are growing as its faithfulness of its members. It has never been better organized or equipped to perform its divine mission. I testify that as the forces of evil increase under Lucifer's leadership, and as the good increase under the leadership of Jesus Christ, there will be growing battles between the two until the final confirmation. As the issue becomes clear and more obvious, all mankind will eventually be required to align themselves either with the kingdom of God or the devil. All these conflicts rage either secretly or openly. The righteous will be tested. God's wrath will soon shake the nations of the earth and will be poured out on the wicked without measure. But God will provide strength for the righteous and the means of escape, and eventually and finally truth will prevail. I testify that it is time for every man to set in order his own house, but temporarily, both temporarily and spiritually. It is time for the unbeliever to learn for himself that this work is true, that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the kingdom which Daniel prophesied God would set up on the latter day, never to be destroyed, a stone that would eventually fill the whole earth and stand forever.
Travis Wayne Goodsall. I finished watching Wednesday, season 1, last night, and I noticed that there were 3 main types of enemies that Wednesday faced at Nevermore concentration camp. The first one was obvious for anybody to catch on to. The villains of the story who try to take away agency with acts of violence and threats and bullying. Then they had, which I am so grateful they're finally going back to vilifying psychology. Dear God. America has already been screwed up, and America is doomed this year because of the psychological threat, national security threat to this nation. But yeah, they again showed the psychologist who was using the bullying of psychology to take away the agency of Wednesday, to change her behavior. The psychologist didn't care whatsoever that Wednesday is a product of the bullying as a little girl when she was held down and forced to watch the murder of her scorpion pet. That would cause any little girl to no longer trust boys and other people in positions of authority and trust who did nothing to stop the bullies. And so yeah, I was glad that the beast murdered her. I had no empathy for anybody who takes away the agency of others. That was the natural consequence of being abusive. The criminal was punished in the story, even though it wasn't through due process in the justice system. And so it's the Purim type thing, where the pit that you dig for others is the pit that you fall into yourself. Even though it was the other woman, Nicole Richie, who likewise used psychology through drugging that resulted in the one kid becoming a monster. The Hyde, just like his mommy. But then the third one is definitely not going to be identified by little girls unless little girls relate to Wednesday. But I definitely saw how psychology being imposed on our children, and then our children projecting the psychologist through them on social media, is turning back on the kids as social media becomes a weapon, sabotaging the children through psychology. And right now we're in that fight over whether social media is an enemy to our children. And it technically isn't, as I just went over with you. When the Wednesday show, whether the script writers knew it or not, were presenting the actual case as to what the cause of our children's danger was social media. And that is that Enid, because of her abusive mother trying to take away her agency, had caused Enid to think that taking away agency is not the issue, it's taking away agency through abuse. And so Enid, to Wednesday, tried to have Wednesday turn that frown upside down to take away Wednesday's agency, not wanting to understand that it was the bullies who had her watch the murder of her pet. And so Enid, by threatening Wednesday to be happy or else she's leaving and going to the other friend to stay, was using guilt trips to force Enid to change her behavior to be happy in the eyes of Enid, so that Enid can feel self-confident, affirm herself, as was the word that was brought out, and validate Enid's feelings to protect Enid from feeling unhappy, which was hilarious when she first defied Wednesday putting on her headphones and listening to that one song that I was putting in the theme song in the description below. I did it on purpose because I was cyber attacked, and so I purposely put that song on there for that reason. And so she eventually came to learn that you can't force other people to behave like you want them to. You have to accept people for who they are. You have to get to know the person. And only if the person is trying to take away your agency do they present themselves as a threat to you. But if they're not posing a threat to you, leave them alone. And so this is where Mormons do not understand. I have my own channel on YouTube. I do my videos. I talk about how Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon are in the learning of the Jews. It is Mormons who come to my channel to take away my agency, threatening me, bearing false witness testimony of Jesus. And so they see me as a threat, as they're trying to bully me, to silence me, to shut me down like YouTube has done. I saw what YouTube did yesterday. I was getting back up again to 76 views in the hour, and then boom, YouTube had me tanked. I see the threat that YouTube poses to me by orders of the church. I've seen this pattern of practice all this time. I know about Lucifer's plan of happiness to take away agency. I'm born and raised in the Covenant Mormon. I know it all. And so Mormons cannot argue that there's some kind of doctrine in the scriptures to take away my agency. It is Mormons who are purposely not studying or are in denial of what they read or know that what they read is true and purposely go against it. Sons of perdition. These are the Danites in Mormonism. They are the descendants of Danites, and they are also part of the destruction of America. As they are running the church, they are in positions of government, and they are in business fields. Mostly concentrated in this valley, of course, in Utah, but they have spread out over the 200 years. And so as I did the bombshell video the other week from the High Council minutes, and it could have been earlier this week, in which it exposes that Brigham Young, in the 14th of October, somewhere around that second week, claimed that he was the president of the church, not the president of the 12. Thomas B. Marsh had not left. Thomas B. Marsh was in that document as the president of the 12. And thus, Brigham Young cannot be the president of the 12. And yet, it was because Joseph Smith was not around. He had just gotten out in September on bond and was not with the Danites, because Brigham Young believed that he had finally locked up Joseph Smith and took over the church, claiming to be the president of the church. And so Thomas B. Marsh's affidavit is very telling. he accuses Joseph Smith, even though he says, Mormons told me. His whole affidavit is based on the Danites telling him that it was Joseph Smith who was leading this charge, forcing them to force others to take away their agency with threats of death and murder. And so here he says that he was told that on the day before this, Joseph Smith the prophet, in which he said that all the Mormons who refused to take up arms, if necessary, in difficulties with the citizens, should be shot or otherwise put to death. Anybody who went with Joseph Smith on Zion's camp march knows that this is not Joseph. Oliver Cowdery, when he too was told by David Whitmer, who was told by Danites of the same concept that Thomas B. Marsh is saying. I was told that Joseph did and said and believed. They didn't get it from Joseph. They got it from the Danites. The Danites were cooing Joseph's church. And for any Mormon to deny this, to assume that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints of Brigham Young is telling the truth, can only be a Danite. Because the other option is that you're incredibly mentally problemed. I can go off on the list. You've been corrupted by psychologists, either directly or indirectly through peer pressure in the culture that have somewhere down the line been directly attacked by a psychologist. Because for a Mormon to read Learning of the Jews and still declare Jesus is the Christ, yeah, there's some mental problems if you're not a Danite. You've got some serious problems that need to be fixed immediately, because you are an anti-Semite and you are betraying your founder and denouncing the Book of Mormon. That's what these Danites were doing to Mormons, threatening them. Join us or we're going to murder you. Denounce the Jewish church, the Jewish Book of Mormon, or we're going to murder you. Because they changed the name. It's these Danites that are responsible for that. It is the Danites who were the missionaries, lying to new converts, succoring them to denounce the learning of the Jews. 1 Nephi chapter 1, verse 2. And thus, the key to our Christ and the learning of the Jews, 2 Nephi chapter 3. Messiah ben Joseph and Messiah ben David. You are ignoring that Constantine is the great and abominable church that created Christianity with Jesus. And so any current religion that claims to be Christian or a branch off from Christianity of Constantine is the great and abominable church. Only two churches, Judaism, Christianity. It's real simple, Mormons. It's all right there in our Book of Mormon. Even as a kid, I understood verse 19 of the first vision. Christianity is wrong. I had no clue what the creed was, but I knew Christianity was wrong somehow. And I knew that the Book of Mormon said that the Jews were the chosen people. Supersessionism is where Christianity says the Jews are no longer the chosen people. We are as Christian. That's what Joseph Smith was saying is abominable. The Jews wrote the scriptures. It is the learning of the Jews. It is the Christ of the Jews. It is not Christian. And so that's what these Danites were doing to Joseph Smith in 1838. And this is October 24th, 1838. Joseph Smith was out of the picture. He was out on bond, but he had to behave. He was not here. The minutes clearly exposed this, that Brigham Young took over the church from when Joseph Smith was locked up in September to even upwards of this affidavit of Thomas B. Marsh. Because Thomas B. Marsh was told by the Danites. And it was that Galatian incident that caused Thomas B. Marsh to say, that's it, I'm out. Because now he was being told that it was Joseph Smith who led an army into Galatia with 20 or 30 men, and that they had burned Galatia, that it was done by the aforesaid company that marched there. The Mormons informed me that they had hauled away all the goods from the store in Galatia and deposited them at the bishop's storehouses. This was the same criminal practice that Brigham Young did with the Perpetual Immigration Fund, which was human trafficking. Paying to have the Mormons who were too poor to come with the Vanguard Company to come to the valley, which is why Brigham Young didn't care if they died in the winter. They're poor. You know, he did go out to save that one company because he needed more numbers of Mormons. But he didn't want the Mormons, he wanted the numbers. He wanted an army against the United States that took over his kingdom the very next year. And so thus the Perpetual Immigration Fund. And that was what caused the church to be shut down by the United States of America for the criminal operation that it was. The Mormons were forced to pay it back. It wasn't to help, as a religion, bring people to Zion. It was purposely done as a human trafficking operation. Just like the Perpetual Education Fund, which Hinckley used the Perpetual Immigration Fund as the pattern for, and thus practiced it outside of the United States, not inside. It's human trafficking in the third world countries where he practiced it, where I think it's still being practiced to this day. And so, because Mormons have to pay tithing, but then they're given a loan that they have to pay back on top of it. And so the money that they receive after getting a job has to go towards paying off the debt and paying the church tithing. So the church is abusing Mormons through this process because of tithing, and that's why the church was shut down. It turned polygamy into sex trafficking. That's what these Danites were doing. The same pattern of practice. Ex foe never mows. You know about this affidavit, but yet you believe the Mormons that said it was Joseph. You didn't do your research in the Joseph Smith papers like I did to check and find that Brigham Young was calling himself the president of the church in Joseph's absence. Wherever he was going was not where Brigham Young took the church. And so burning is also key because this is the signature pattern of the Danites, which they got from the Illuminati from which they originated. Likewise, the Confederates in the South were another branch off after 9/11, 1826. You have the group that stayed in the North. Heber C. Kimball found out that it was Smith Sr. that was responsible, joined the church to pull the same stunt, and revenge, as they believed, for saving America. And the Confederates, those went down to the South, formed the Confederates to go against the government, and then cause the Civil War. And then losing the Civil War, they then, the one leader formed the KKK. And so instead of burning of buildings in the Civil War, you now have burning crosses. And then they were Democrats of the conservative platform, and then they supported neo-Nazis or Nazism for World War II, and then after World War II, America takes in psychologists from Nazi Germany's concentration camps, has them working with the CIA. They've now destroyed America in revenge. They weren't grateful for their American liberators. And then McCarthy turned the Republican Party into the Conservative Party, going against communism, who were our allies during World War II. And then Nixon officially had his campaign button with the elephant with the inverted pentagrams now. And so the inverted pentagram became the symbol of the GOP. And then now we've got Trump, who created MAGA, which is a combination of all the evil in the world. And yeah, they act exactly like Danites, because they're all from the same source. I've done the research. And so, they're told that Lyman White, which is interesting because Orange White, his son, is the one who tells in his journal that he went to visit Brother Higbee and found that Brother Higbee was practicing polygamy. And Brother Higbee said, Joseph Smith approves of this, but you can't tell anybody because it's illegal. These Danites are pure evil. They were convincing women that Joseph Smith approved of polygamy and was practicing polygamy. He was not. Ex Fomos, you got it wrong. You left the church for the wrong reasons. I mean, yes, this church, you need to leave, but not because they claim that Joseph Smith is responsible for who they are. It's the Danites who are responsible for who they are. It's the Danites who were taking other men's wives, little children, polygamy, murder, looting, burning, raping, etc. So it's great that you left the church, but you did it for the wrong reason. And because you did it for the wrong reason, you don't understand why Mormons stay. Because he's a true prophet of Jesus. And so when you hit hard times, then you think, well, the church was good to me. They were taking away your agency. They're forcing you to turn that frown upside down, forcing you to pay, and bullying you, threatening you that you needed to pay or they're going to burn you at the second coming. The Danites. You're not catching on. You're not recognizing the bullying abuse. And you're creating your own Enid happiness bubbles, even though you've left the church. You find happiness in condemning and judging Mormons for thinking that such behavior is good. And it's not good, but it wasn't Joseph. It was Brigham and his Danites. You've got misplaced judgment. And that's where you're getting deceived. But we come to the part where the Danites told Thomas B. Marsh some stuff here. The Mormons told him that they have among them a company consisting of all that are considered true Mormons, called the Danites, who have taken an oath to support the heads of the church in all things that they say or do, whether right or wrong. Right, does not? Are any of you still listening to my channel? When I first started doing videos on DesNat and exposing them, a whole flood of them came to attack. And YouTube, under orders of the church, stepped in to cut my views down. Dear God, I have never seen such vile hate and denialism. But yeah, the leader of DesNat, when he was pressured here in Utah, was trying to say that very same thing. We just want to take away Mormons' agency to obey in all things what the prophets say or do, whether right or wrong. And it's always right. That's the whole thing, is that in their eyes, nothing is wrong of the prophets when they threaten us. That's what I see from the comments of hate. And so they're also revealing that there were Mormons who got tricked into being a part of this band. He says, many, however, of this band are much dissatisfied with this oath as being against moral and religious principles, just like Thomas B. Marsh is with his affidavit here. There were Mormons who got tricked because they were converted by the Danites, thinking it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that Joseph Smith is Christian, and that the Book of Mormon is another testament of Jesus Christ. And so they have their own interpretation of the Ten Commandments, even though it's supersessionism, which is pure evil. But these pure evil Christians are not to the level of evil that these Danites are. These Danites took supersessionism to a whole new level. And so, yeah, there's a reason why the extermination order was given. But because of being tricked by the Danites, this affidavit confirmed to Governor Boggs that it's the whole of Mormonism, that it's led by Joseph, that it has nothing to do with these Danites who are the threat to Joseph Smith and his church. And if Governor Boggs had known this, he could have helped Joseph Smith go after the Danites, as some of these who are disaffected, dissatisfied, could have helped identify who the actual Danites are and get them all locked up, so that we wouldn't be here right now in this place that we're at, where the nation is about to fall. And this is where Thomas B. Marsh exposes this, that I read to you from The Way to Perfection. But this is their plan. This and that coincide. The plan of Smith, said Smith, according to Mormons, the Danites, the prophet, is to take the state. Oh, Right. I needed to cover that because that was interesting. Oh, where is it? Oh, there it is. It's after this. Okay, good. The plan of said Smith, the prophet, is to take the state of Missouri, and he professes to his people to intend taking the U.S. and ultimately the whole world. This is the belief of the church. It's the Danites. Danites told you it's the Danites. He's making the fallacy argument in believing them, just like ex-foe Nevermos believed this Church of Jesus Christ when they throw Joseph Smith under the bus, but claim that he's a prophet. So everything is good. It's the same Danite pattern. And in my opinion of the prophet's plan, in my own opinion of the prophet's plans and intentions. No, he doesn't know. It's the Danites. And this is what buried under some stuff. The way to perfection, as I've been going over with you, which I got the death threat from the church when I exposed it. It had enough. That's it, Travis. You're through. And here I am now. They failed. But as we're nearing 9 days left, the attacks have escalated. And so he's claiming that Lucifer is going to hand over the keys of government to the saints, the church, Jesus. He uses all three in talking about it throughout the different collection of words by his son for the publication. And so we can see that it's the Danite plan. And this is exactly what the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is doing to America right now. They've already done it to the state of Utah. The church owns Utah and is running Utah. Agency is gone in the state of Utah. Abuse runs rampant in the state of Utah. Any Mormon who thinks that this is Zion of peace, safety, and refuge need to have their lives saved from this indoctrinating brainwashing of psychological manipulation. Or you're a Danite, laughing that you're a denialist. And so yes, by overthrowing the government, I told you, America falls, the world falls. Because no longer will the might of America, military might of America, be able to intercede on behalf of victimized nations around the world. And we've already seen that Biden and Harris, along with the deep state Dems, are promoting the Islamic terrorist agenda against Israel, setting it up for the election to be about who's going to fulfill biblical prophecy and save the Jews from utter destruction. This was the Christian interpretation because of Constantine. They don't know of the day and the hour. that John gives in Revelation 19 in 9 days. And so, in their eyes, it all has to be fulfilled. And since Jesus isn't real, Jesus inspires them to take away other people's agency, to establish the kingdom of Jesus in America. They don't see that such a thing is Lucifer's plan of happiness, to overthrow the government and the Constitution in establishing their interpretation of Jesus that they supersessionism of the Jews replaced of the Jews. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints knows, because this has been their plot the whole time. Right? And so the thing that I wanted to point out to you, which was amusing to me, is that Thomas B. Marsh knew and understood, as all Mormons did, that Joseph Smith being called a prophet meant that he predicts the future. Nelson? No. I've gone over it with you. The church will not prophesy of the future. They will not reveal the dates given in Scripture. They aren't warning you. They're purposely setting you up, as the Danites did, to have you murdered. And then they'll claim that, oh, we are the victims, we're a religion, how could you do this to us? We demand justice to get our kingdom back. Just exactly like Brigham Young did. Those who were disaffected of the evils of the Danites, if you are listening to me right now, your lives are in danger in 9 days. Now granted, you don't know the day and the hour, only me. But that's where I don't know if the church is going to continue to go through with it. Nelson has failed. He was supposed to have the Salt Lake Temple finished for conference weekend, to have it dedicated and the Lord suddenly come to his temple before the big boom, and the coming of the clouds of glory, on a flying white horse, which the church removes the horse, because the Book of Mormon does. That was very clever to do that, to expose these guys. Because if they put in the white horse, everybody would know that it's from Revelation 19. Because everybody knows it can't be real, right? I mean, Anna Kendrick's boyfriend murdered Jesus on the back of the flying white horse, so he's not going to show anyway. And so, yeah, they knew that Joseph Smith was predicting the future. And yet, he was deceived by the Danites. And so Mormons today deny Joseph Smith as a prophet and a revelator and a seer and a translator because of the Danites, who have no authority and thus can only predict what they themselves are going to cause, which is what the FBI was investigating the boy who had the vision of the plane exploding and caused the panic. Oh, Dustin. Come on, you had it on there. Come on. Devon Sawa, Alex Browning, Tony Todd, the Crypt Keeper. So yeah. All right, Albert Pike. It's in 19 July 1840, Joseph Smith tells us exactly. Brigham Young's Danites are going to cause the threat to America. He knew. He just didn't have 2 or 3 witnesses to testify against them, and Brigham never confessed. He was manipulating Joseph Smith's disciplinary rules. That's why it was necessary for the Mormons who were disaffected to step forward and report the crimes of the Danites, and they didn't. And thus the Danites were allowed to continue to exist and expand and destroy the church. That's why Mormons, you're causing your own destruction if you are not reporting on this church. The FBI is not listening to just me. And they're apparently not listening to the whistleblower either. Or, well, James Huntsman blew it because he called tithing a donation. But every single Mormon, you've been victimized by the church. If you're an ex-faux Mormon, you've been victimized by the church. Why didn't you report it to the authorities? Because you didn't know it was a crime? You had the receipts. You knew. And so, yeah, Joseph Smith. Government will be on the brink of ruin. Constitution, brink of ruin. Going to be destroyed because of the Danites. Joseph Smith calls out Brigham Young and his 12. Refers to the Last Supper. I have had Mormons tell me that they can't believe that that's a prophecy. Because Joseph isn't Jesus. Yes, he is. Messiah, Ben, Joseph. Dumbasses. And so, yes, I see the connection because I'm doing the study and the research. This is the threat. And so I don't know. Nelson has failed. It's clear that definitely America will fall this election. And the church can then claim the whole state of Utah. They just need to wait it out. But the Danite practice is to destroy and start anew. To purge the church of the disloyal. Those of you in this valley, like me, who are apostate, anti-Mormon, anti-Christ Korah whores. And likewise use innocent Mormons who are just stupid and don't study because they've been conned into read, pondering, and praying and getting the right feeling, and do not manifest the truth, the fruit of the seed of the word. And so they will be sacrificial lambs. And the church will come out after the destruction and say, they were good people, they went straight to the celestial kingdom. We want revenge on America for not protecting us. We demand to be given the land of Missouri so that we can murder the community of Christ that we conned out of all of Joseph Smith's stuff, except for his grave, because we don't like Joseph. And the Temple Lot Church. Murder them so that we can have the land back. Eminent domain for religion. So, August 15th, 1871. There were people who've tried to claim that this is a forged fake document. No. I've established that it is accurate. The wording that he uses was the wording that was used back in those days. It just wasn't in its form that it took place when it actually happened in the First World War and the Second World War. But we're focusing on the Third World War. And again, this also helped to confirm the Illuminati threat. Must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agenter of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. Ta-da! The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other. This is why Islam purposely branched out with people claiming to seek asylum from their abusive extremist Islamists. And then they get into the different countries, they rise up in number, they rise up in rank, and then they take over positions of authority, just like the UN. The UN, he's not Islamist, but because of the pressure of those who are Islamists in the UN, he's caving and seeing the Israelis as the threat, ignoring October 7th and what the UN was purposely causing for October 7th. Just like a Danite would do. And so, yeah, Biden and Harris, pressured by Islamists. Stop those Jews, I mean Israelis. Islam likewise are supersessionism of the Jews. They replaced the Jews. Muhammad was an evil man, claiming to be the prophet, going to the top of the mountain to receive the word of God, called the Quran, and then forcing people's agency to convert or die, and sure enough, burn their village. Seeing the pattern? This is Islamic Judgment Day. This is why the people are fighting Israel, so that their children are orphaned and thus suffer, to blame Israel. And the parents die fighting Israel to blame Israel when they're supporting terrorism. Do you see this trap that Islam has so far successfully conducted? And it's helping in this election to set up for Trump to be the savior of the Jews. So that evangelicals can get the United States to have their kingdom of Jesus under Trump. Trump betrays you. He doesn't love Christians. He's only selling the Bible to make money. Do you not understand this? Devil never supports his own. You can't make a deal with the devil and think that Jesus' will be done. Dumbass Christians. And so meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economic exhaustion. Ta-da. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm. The nihilists and atheists come from psychology. They're the cause of Christians who are disaffected with organized religion and then worship Jesus in their own special way. Own personal Jesus. We shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm. Social media. Which, in all its horror, will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery. Little teens are calling for the extermination of Israel in support of Islam through TikTok, and of the most bloody turmoil. It's happened, guys. The Third World War is here. It's in action right now. They did it. They succeeded. People knew about this for decades. Back when Bush became president, this became dominant. There's the Ministry's song, New World Order, that uses the quote from President Bush. A new world order, a new world order. Awesome song. But that was only setting up for this. And so yes, Musk is a neo-Nazi. Ta-da! That's why he's doing what he's doing to X. Which is interesting why the church has abandoned X and have gone back to YouTube. Even though YouTube just barely came out with a new policy saying that the church can't post anymore because they're in violation of the new policy. The contradictions of YouTube's policies is appalling. And everywhere, the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority. MAGA has already told us what they will do for this election. All of the horrors that the Danites did in their election in 1838 to cause the war. MAGA evangelicals, led by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, are doing it right now. An exact same pattern match with the exact same third great-grandchildren of those Danites. Lee, Stewart, Cox, Prophets, Mendenhall, through her husband, at least. I don't know what her maiden name is. The Danites have risen again, guys. They are the national security threat. And they are doing it. America will fall because the deep state Dems failed to do what they knew they needed to do after successfully surviving January 6th. You have Biden who says, I want to work with the other side. And they punked you. You put Merrick Garland in. He knew what he was put in for. And he didn't do it. America has been betrayed. America will fall. The threat has been made. The threat has been enacted. We're in it. And so we're just waiting to see if Nelson can hire an effective hitman finally to do, the job in 9 days, according to Revelation 19, as Christians have interpreted it to be, using both Malachi's day that shall burn as an oven and Daniel's abomination of desolation. And then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity. Evangelicals are MAGA. Evangelicals, by being extremists, are exposing Christianity as a fraud. Just like the church under Nelson, purposely destroying everything that used to mean Mormonism. They call it hinge pointing. whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, and thus anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration. This is the story of the poor Zoramites in the Book of Mormon. They left with Zoram to go build the city of the Zoramites. They had builders, they had farmers, they had people who make clothes, and government officials. But once the buildings were all built, they're unemployed. And all the other jobs are taken. And so because of their poverty, they're kicked out. Thanks for building the buildings and the Rammy-umptum. Get out. And so they don't know where to worship Jesus. Right? It's a synagogue. Did you not catch on to that? Christians don't have synagogues. Jews do. They replaced the Jews with fake Christs. Just like Christians. Nobody else has told you this, have they? And so Alma and Amulek in the story, thank God they came rather than an apostate, anti-Mormon, antichrist Korihor. But that's what Albert Pike is saying is going to happen instead. That there will be no Jewish Christ for you to listen to the truth with. Christianity destroyed. No Christ. No Jesus to save anybody. He doesn't come from outer space. Nobody's raptured. Everybody's murdered. Christianity is a fraud. Alma and Amulek in the story are the Christ figure. Alma is the Christ figure, saying, hey Mormons, you don't need the Church of Jesus Christ to worship the Jewish Christ. They taught you wrong. And so he has to teach them about the true process of faith in the Word that must be produced in the physical realm. Notice that? Christianity is about not real Jesus, not producing physical results, not using science, not using logic Socratic methodology. And here he is teaching them the scientific process of agronomy to produce the results so that you may judge whether a word is true or false. Automatically, if you do not produce the word because the leaders told you not to, you automatically know that that word is wrong. Anybody who tells you not to produce the results of the words they tell you to do, to just trust them or trust in the Lord, they're lying to you. They want to hurt you. They want to steal your money. Oh, that's what the church is doing. So blatantly obvious. But instead, Albert Pike is saying that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, after having fled before you get destroyed, after conference, they're going to Disneyland. And abandoning the Mormons that Monday. That they will return, claim this is abominable, we demand Zion. They've hoarded the multi-trillions of dollars from all over the world with their scam. And so the destruction, yeah, they'll claim, try to get insurance money back, and they'll force the government to pay them restitution. And they might get it, maybe not. If it's Trump, maybe, it depends. The church will have to bow the knee to Trump. that will kind of backfire on them. Devil never supports his own. But yeah, they will be able to rebuild Zion as the world is destroyed, technology is destroyed. No more internet, back to living as cavemen until we can rebuild the technologies that we had. But if we're going to produce Lucifer, it's slavery, the law of consecration in the temple. You own nothing. Everything you do has to go to the church. They give you only enough to survive so that you can continue to be a slave to the church. It's right there in the law of consecration, which disturbed me, because they say it comes from the Doctrine and Covenants. I've checked the Doctrine and Covenants. Nothing in there is about slavery. Even the Book of Mormon tells you exactly the economy for Zion. And it's not slavery. It's not even communism, as people try to claim, who are Danites. But yeah, it's appalling. But he says, you'll receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer. So that's interesting. The church may continue to keep Jesus. They already have the doctrine of Lucifer, and they call it Jesus. It's Jesus' plan of happiness. It's Jesus' covenant path. No, it's the doctrine of Lucifer. It takes away agency. See how I'm tying it all together? That's the pure doctrine of Lucifer. We know this from our scriptures as Mormons. Taking away agency. They are punishing the world for their abuse of agency. Condemning and judging them. Danites is Hebrew for judge, in the plural. Finally brought out in the public view. And so the church no longer has to hide. They just declare the doctrine of Lucifer at the pulpit of conference. Uchtdorf can give a talk. Hey guys, you're the bearers of light. Oh, you already did that one in 2017? Oh. But did you see this? He's saying, manifesting the truth of the doctrine of Lucifer. Whereas the Book of Mormon, Moroni chapter 10, verses 4, technically 4, manifest the truth of the Judaism religion, the science of agronomy. Lucifer is not science. Lucifer is not logic. It's take away agency. This is rule by taking away agency. To control or compel the children of men at any level of unrighteousness. You know, when Joseph Smith was in Liberty Jail after the affidavit of Thomas B. Marsh and the extermination order by Governor Boggs. Okay? So we're over an hour. But you understand how studying the scriptures, studying other sources that support the prophecies of the latter days, you can tie it all together as to what the plot is of the enemy. So yeah, this is why I'm warning you. The church is threatening to murder you. 5 weeks in advance. Don't fear the reaper. Jesus will save you. And then they changed the website to the resurrection of Jesus. 4+ weeks in advance of Easter. And then they decided, all right, fine, Travis. They had the prophets do their false testimonies of Jesus for Easter, telling you not to fear the reaper. Irene last night, dear God. Says, rest in peace. And here we are. Today is Oaks. And since we know that it's YouTube videos, not them tweeting from X, porn, yeah, we already know. So Oaks is going to again threaten you to murder you. No, fear the reaper. Drink the Kool-Aid. Pay the money. Pay the money for the Kool-Aid. And then for Easter, they'll put out Nelson. And so, yeah, this is scary. But Joseph Smith warned you what to do. Find and listen to your Christ to get out of Babylon. And so, Section 133 and Section 64 both tell you to do it. Should we do both? Will it be easy to find? Or am I going to be struggling? Okay, there's Hinckley abusing the quote because he's using section 119 for the definition of tithing here. For he that is tithed shall not be burned at his coming. Yeah, here it is. For after today cometh the burning. This is speaking after the manner of the Lord. For verily I say, tomorrow all the proud and they that do wickedly shall be as stubble, and I will burn them up. And Joseph Smith in his history says, they that come shall burn the Mormons. For I am the Lord of hosts. This is the 9/11 event prior to the fall of America with the election. This is all part of it. The Danites are about burning and starting up brand new with a new world order. I, the Lord of hosts, and I will not spare any that remain in Babylon. You're still in Babylon, both in the church and in the land. And so, section 133, verse 5. Well, we can go before. 4. Prepare ye, O my people. Sanctify yourselves. Gather ye together. Who has the keys of gathering in the latter days? Moses, your Christ. O ye people of my church upon the land of Zion. You're supposed to hearken to me. Yeah, me. Only those who are listening know about this. All you that have not been commanded to tarry. If you're not listening to me, yeah, you're gonna stay. You're not commanded to stay unless you are my enemy. Yeah, you will not come to Zion. You're commanded to tarry. Go ye out from Babylon. You catching the point here? Because there's more. You're not studying your scriptures on this. Section 1, the preface to the Doctrine and Covenants. Talking to Mormons. If you don't give heed to the Bible and the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith, you shall be cut off from among the people. Verse 40 in the second vision. He refers you to Acts. What does it say in Acts again? Precisely as it stands in our New Testament. For ye have strayed from mine ordinances. Christians haven't strayed from Jesus' ordinances or Joseph Smith's, or broken mine everlasting covenant of monogamy. Mormons seek not the Lord to establish his righteousness, but every Mormon walketh in his own way, after the image of his own God, whose image is in the likeness of the world, and the substance of that of an idol. That's what you need to leave women alone for. It's abominable. A woman's body is not a threat to children or anybody else. They are not a psychological addiction. You don't need to go to a psychologist for your needing to see women naked. There is no harm. Christianity is the harm to women, not women. Dear God, I mean, the children, seriously? Oh no, we can't breastfeed anymore, because, well, how do we... Children, oh no. Child porn as parents. Dear God, Christians are evil. Leave us alone. Stop taking away our agency. This is the problem of the social media cataclysm of Albert Pike. 16. Wax old and perish in Babylon, even Babylon the Great, which shall fall. Babylon's fallen a long time ago to Persia. It's not talking about Babylon. It's code for the great and abominable church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Danites. Because that was the Danites right there, practicing polygamy, forcing your agency, having you worship Jesus who's not real, and thus you have to create your own interpretation of Jesus and how Jesus wants you to behave, and thus how to act on other people to force their agency to worship your Jesus. All right there. Joseph knew the plot because Senior was there at 9/11/1826. Done all the videos, so we're done. Can I take the rest of the day off? I'm warning you, and yet it's not getting through.